Before we get into tonight's stories, I just want to take a few seconds to say thank you for being here. Unlike many horror channels, all the stories you hear on this channel are completely original, written by me. Nothing comes from Reddit, Google, or any third-party source, so every story is something new that you won't hear anywhere else. Keeping up with the writing is a lot of work, but seeing this community grow makes it completely worth it. So if you enjoy the stories and you're a fan of horror, please consider subscribing and joining us. It really helps the channel grow, and it would mean a lot to me. Now let's get into the stories. I was an average man, across the board. That is probably the most important thing I can tell you before I tell you anything else. I wasn't a cultist. I wasn't a murderer. I wasn't some twisted freak with a secret basement full of knives and newspaper clippings. I was just ordinary. Painfully ordinary, maybe. I had the same dreams most people have. I wanted a decent job, a little money in the bank, a wife, kids, a house with a lawn I could complain about mowing. I wanted good health, good luck, and maybe enough saved up one day to take my family somewhere warm for Christmas. That was the full size of my ambition. I wasn't spiritual either, not even slightly. I didn't believe in ghosts, devils, curses, spirits, angels, demons, any of it. The closest I ever came to religion was bowing my head while my grandmother said grace at Thanksgiving. Even then, I mostly did it out of respect for her, not God. So when I tell you now, from inside a prison cell, that I believe in demons, I understand how that sounds. I understand exactly how that sounds. It sounds like a guilty man trying to explain away something unforgivable. Maybe that's why nobody believed me. 10 years ago, I had a good life. Not an exciting one, maybe, but a good one. I worked as a project manager for a construction supply company. It paid well enough. I had health insurance, a company truck, and a boss who only annoyed me 3 days out of 5. I was engaged to a woman named Claire. Claire was kind in a way that made you feel ashamed of every selfish thought you'd ever had. She laughed easily. She cried at dog rescue videos. She used to tuck her cold feet under my legs on the couch and pretend she wasn't doing it. I loved her more than I knew how to say. We had just bought our first house together. It was nothing grand, just a modest 2-bedroom place on a new housing estate, about 40 minutes outside the city. Fresh paint, new carpets, a little square garden out back. To us, it felt like a palace. The whole estate had been built on land that used to belong to an old abandoned frontier town. There wasn't much left of it by the time the developers got there. Some foundations, a rotting church frame, a collapsed well, a few old roads, half swallowed by weeds. The place had a legend, of course. Places like that always do. The story was that the town had been abandoned around the turn of the 20th century, under strange circumstances. People vanished. Livestock were found butchered. There were rumors of witchcraft, devil worship, blood rituals, all the usual campfire nonsense. I laughed when one of the estate agents told us. Claire didn't. She said the whole place felt sad. I told her all new neighborhoods feel sad until people move in and start making memories. For the first few months, everything was perfect. Then the dreams started. At first, they were just unpleasant. Dark rooms, something breathing behind me, the feeling of being watched from the foot of the bed. Then they became vivid. There were 3 creatures. One had the head of a dying man, not a dead man. Dying. That was somehow worse. His skin was yellow and waxy. stretched tight over sharp bones. His lips were cracked. His eyes rolled wetly in their sockets like he was begging for death, but too hateful to accept it. The second had the head of a bull, massive, black, steaming, with horns that scraped the ceiling of whatever nightmare room I found myself in. It never spoke. It only breathed and lowered its head like it was waiting to charge. The third had the head of a ram. That one scared me the most. It smiled. Every night they came closer. I stopped sleeping properly. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, gasping like I'd been held underwater. Claire would turn on the lamp and put her hand on my chest, telling me I was safe, telling me I was home. But I didn't feel home anymore. The house changed. Not physically, not in any way I could prove. But the air felt heavier. Corners looked darker than they should have. Sometimes I'd walk into a room and forget why I was there, then realize I'd been standing still for 10 minutes. Then came the whispers. My name at first. Just my name, breathed from another room. Daniel. I'd turn around, expecting Claire, but she wouldn't be there. Then the whispers became sentences. Let us in. Open. You are tired. Let us in. I didn't tell Claire at first. I was scared she'd think I was losing my mind. Maybe I was scared because I thought I was losing it too. When I finally did tell her, she cried. Not because she thought I was crazy, but because she had heard them too. That should have made me feel less alone. It didn't. It made everything worse. One night, we were sitting on the couch watching a film. I don't remember what film. Isn't that strange? I remember every second of what happened after, but not the film. Claire was curled against me with a blanket over both of us. I remember smelling her shampoo, coconut and vanilla. I remember her laughing at something on the screen. Then my stomach turned. It was instant and violent, like I'd been poisoned. The room tilted. My ears filled with pressure. I tried to say her name, but my tongue felt too big for my mouth. Then I was ripped out of myself. That is the only way I can describe it. I didn't black out. I didn't lose consciousness. I was still looking through my eyes, still hearing through my ears, still feeling my heartbeat. But I wasn't in control. Something else was. A rage filled me. Not anger, not frustration, rage, ancient, bottomless hatred. It wasn't aimed at Claire because of anything she had done. It was aimed at her because she was alive, because she was warm, because she loved me. My hands moved. I watched them grab her. I heard her scream my name. I tried to stop. God help me, I tried. I screamed inside my own skull until I thought my mind would split open, but my body didn't listen. I hit her. I hit the woman I loved. I threw her against the wall hard enough to crack the plaster. I tore at her hair. I clawed at her face. Her blood got under my fingernails. I can still feel it. She managed to get away because she was stronger than she knew, and because whatever had me was enjoying itself too much. It wanted fear. It wanted pain. It wanted me awake inside it. Watching, Claire ran barefoot into the street, screaming. Then I was alone in the living room. For a few seconds, my body stood completely still. I felt something turn its attention inward, toward me. It was like being stared at in a dark room by something standing inches from your face. Then my mouth smiled. I didn't make it smile. It stretched across my face, crooked and wrong, so wide it hurt. A voice came out of me, not mine.
Asmodeus is king!
Then it laughed. The next thing I remember clearly is the front door exploding inward and police shouting. I was on the floor, hands on me, knees in my back. Someone screaming at me not to move. And suddenly I was me again, completely me. I cried. I begged. I asked if Claire was alive. She was. Barely. She survived, but she lost sight in one eye. She had scars on her face and arms. Her left wrist never healed right. I did that to her. My hands did. That is the part I can never escape. At trial, I told the truth. That was my mistake. My lawyer wanted stress, mental breakdown, temporary psychosis, anything human, anything a jury could understand. But I told them about the dreams, the whispers, the creatures. I told them something had entered me and used my body. No one believed me. Why would they? The prosecutor called it a coward's fantasy. The newspapers called it the possession defense. People online called me a monster pretending to be haunted. Claire testified. She didn't look at me once. I don't blame her. I was sentenced to life for attempted murder. I have served 9 years so far. Prison changes a man, but not in the way people think. It doesn't make you hard, not really. It hollows you out. It takes away the future first. Then the past starts turning sour too. For years, I wondered if I really had gone insane. Maybe I invented the demon because the truth was worse. Maybe some hidden violent thing had always lived inside me and finally found its way out. The media dug up old social media posts and spoke to old lovers and acquaintances, and then framed it to make it look like I was always a crazy time bomb of a man, waiting to explode into madness. Then, 3 years ago, a guard left a newspaper in the common room. There was a small article buried near the back. Another attack. Same estate. A man named Robert Ellis had nearly killed his wife and 2 children in their kitchen. No history of violence, no drugs, no mental illness. When police arrived, he was standing in the hallway, smiling. According to one officer, he said, "Asmodeus is king." The article disappeared the next day. I asked everyone I could about it. Wrote letters, filed requests. Most went unanswered. Different houses, different people, same estate. Seemingly good people becoming monsters for one night. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I'm seeing patterns because I need them to exist. Maybe. But last month, I received a letter. No return address. Prisoners receive so much random post, especially high-profile murderers. It would shock you. Inside was a single photograph of the old town before it was abandoned. A church stood at the center. Beside it was a group of people in old-fashioned clothes, faces blurred by age and exposure. In the black and white, you could make out 3 of the figures near the front, wearing crude old homemade masks. A bull, a ram, and a screaming face. On the back, someone had written, "Asmodeus is king. He shall bring untold suffering to all men." I keep that photograph under my mattress. I don't know who sent it. I don't know why. But I know something evil exists out there. It waits under new paint and fresh lawns. It waits in bedrooms, in kitchens and living rooms, where couples watch films under blankets and think their lives are just beginning. I am not asking you to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. Every night I see Claire's face as it was before I ruined it. Every night I hear her scream my name. But I am telling you this because one day they may build over something old near you. They may give the streets pretty names and sell the houses as dream homes. They may tell you legends are just legends. Do not believe them. Some places remember. Some things wait. And if you ever wake in the dark to hear your name whispered from another room, do not answer. Do not listen. And whatever you do not let them in. I am a proud Saudi. I always will be. But I'd be lying if I told you I was a traditional Saudi. My family has lived on this land for centuries. But for the last 100 years, we've lived a very different life from most. My great-grandfather was one of the businessmen who helped transform Saudi Arabia into the beating heart of the world's oil trade. His work earned him enormous wealth, but more importantly, it earned him the respect and favor of the House of Saud. That relationship endured through the generations. Even today, our family occupies a place where doors open before we knock. Money gives you many things. Status gives you even more. For me, it meant my childhood wasn't really spent in Saudi Arabia at all. I attended private schools in Switzerland, spent summers in France, and eventually earned a place at Oxford University. Oxford changed my life. Not because of the education, although it was exceptional, but because of the friends I made there. Charles, Rupert, Dietrich. The four of us were inseparable. Charles was English through and through, intelligent almost to the point of being irritating. He graduated with a double first in history and classical literature and had already been accepted to begin a PhD. He devoured mythology the way other people watched football. Rupert was charming, sarcastic, and impossible to offend. Dietrich was German, quiet, methodical, and endlessly practical. Last year, after we had all begun our careers, they finally accepted my invitation to visit Saudi Arabia. Naturally, I showed them Riyadh first. Anyone who hasn't visited in years would hardly recognize it now. Towering skyscrapers, international restaurants, luxury shopping districts, concerts, museums, technology hubs. It is rapidly becoming one of the great cities of the Middle East. My friends were amazed, but after several days, Charles looked at me over dinner. "I've loved Riyadh," he said, "but this isn't the Saudi Arabia I came to see." "What did you come to see?" "The old one." I smiled. I know exactly where we're going. 2 days later, we arrived in Tadiq. This was my family's true home, a small desert town around 2 hours north of Riyadh. Life moved slower there. Men still gathered after evening prayers to drink coffee and tell stories. Children played in dusty streets. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction like a golden ocean. "This," I told them, "is the real Saudi." Charles looked happier than I'd seen him all trip. He wandered through ancient alleyways, spoke to elderly locals through my translations, and spent hours photographing old mud brick buildings. That evening, we sat outside my uncle's house, drinking Arabic coffee beneath an impossible number of stars. An elderly farmer joined us. His face looked carved from leather by 80 years beneath the desert sun. Charles asked him about old legends. The old man's smile disappeared. "There are ruins," he said quietly. "Old Tadiq." Charles leaned forward. "How old?" The farmer shrugged. "Nobody knows." He looked directly at Charles. "Long abandoned." "War? Disease? Something worse?" The old man lowered his voice. They spoke of gin. Rupert laughed. The famous genies. The farmer frowned. Not genies. He glanced toward me. You explained to them. I did. Most Westerners know jinn through Disney. The old stories are very different. The jinn described in Islamic tradition are beings created from smokeless fire. They possess intelligence, free will, and powers beyond human understanding. Some are good. Some are unimaginably cruel. Among the darkest tales are those of the Merid, powerful beings capable of manipulating reality itself. Western fairy tales transformed them into wish-granting genies. The originals were nothing so kind. They rarely granted anything freely. Every gift hid a price. Every bargain concealed a trap. The farmer added something else. There are worse things than Marid. Ghouls. Dietrich frowned. The flesh-eaters? The farmer nodded. But they do not always eat the body. Charles was fascinated. Rupert whispered theatrically. Brilliant. Desert monsters. The farmer didn't smile. When I was a boy, he said, people still heard voices in the old city. Nobody spoke after that. Eventually, the farmer stood and left. Charles watched him disappear into the darkness. I have to see those ruins. I laughed. In daylight. He smiled. Of course. We returned to my family's house. We were exhausted from the heat and travel. Within minutes, everyone had gone to bed. I woke sometime after midnight. The bedroom next to mine was empty. Charles was gone. At first, I assumed he'd gone outside. Then I found a note. Couldn't resist. Back before sunrise. I swore aloud. Rupert and Dietrich wanted to come looking immediately. I refused. The desert at night is deadly even without ghost stories. We agreed to leave at first light. None of us slept again. Around 4 a.m, someone hammered on the gate. It was the farmer. His face had turned white. I saw lights. He struggled to breathe. And screaming. We drove there immediately with several local men. The ruins emerged from the dunes like broken teeth. Collapsed walls, half-buried streets. Fragments of a forgotten civilization. Our ancestors, a different, more isolated and spiritual time. We searched for hours. Nothing. Then one of the men shouted. Charles lay almost half a mile away, completely naked, curled into a ball. His skin was ice cold despite the rising sun. His eyes were open, but they weren't seeing us. He kept repeating the same sentence. The man in the light. Again and again. The man in the light. Doctors found no drugs, no alcohol, no injuries beyond scratches and severe dehydration. He was flown back to England. We visited him several months later. I wish we hadn't. He now lives in an assisted neurological care facility outside Gloucester. He barely recognizes people. This was a man capable of reading Latin manuscripts for pleasure. Now nurses celebrate when he manages to write his own name correctly. His parents showed us his notebooks. Every page contained circles. Thousands of circles. Inside each circle, he'd written one sentence. He stole my light. Doctors diagnosed catastrophic psychological trauma. No cause identified. Rupert accepted that explanation. Dietrich tried to. I couldn't. Because Charles wasn't the only one changed. Several weeks after he disappeared, the farmer came to see me. I remembered something. What? My grandfather told me never to approach the ruins. Why? He refused to say more. 6 months later, the farmer died peacefully in his sleep. The day after his funeral, I visited his family. His grandson handed me an old wooden box. He wanted you to have this. Inside was a handwritten journal. It belonged to the farmer's grandfather. Most of it detailed harvests and family events. Then I found one entry. It read, "The stranger appeared again. He stood inside a light brighter than the sun. He offered wisdom. Hamad accepted. Ya Allah, he accepted." The next morning, Hamad remembered nothing. Each week, he remembered less. Within the year, he no longer recognized his own children. It does not eat flesh. It eats the light inside a man. I closed the journal. I have never shown it to anyone. A month later, I flew to England again. Charles sat in the garden staring at birds. For almost an hour, he didn't acknowledge me. Then suddenly he turned. His eyes focused perfectly. For perhaps 3 seconds, my old friend was back, he whispered in flawless Arabic. Not English, Arabic. He opened the door because I wanted knowledge. I froze. Charles never learned Arabic beyond greetings. He smiled sadly. He gives exactly what you ask. He showed me everything. His smile disappeared. I wasn't meant to know. Bismillah, I wasn't meant to know. Then his face emptied. The moment passed. He returned to staring into space. The nurse later assured me he hadn't spoken a coherent sentence in months. I never told her what I'd heard. I returned to Saudi Arabia, carrying more questions than answers. I've since read everything I can find. Religious texts, ancient folklore, historical records. The abandoned city appears occasionally in Ottoman writings. Always briefly. Always with the same warning. Do not remain after sunset. No explanation. Just that. Today the ruins still exist. Tourists rarely visit. Locals never do. If you ask why, they'll laugh awkwardly and change the subject. Saudi Arabia is changing rapidly. New cities rise from the desert. The future is bright, but the desert remembers everything buried beneath it. Sometimes people ask me whether I believe Charles suffered a psychotic break. Perhaps. That would certainly be the easiest answer. Except for one detail. What were the lights the farmer saw that night? I've since destroyed the journal. I've told my own children they are never to visit Old Thadik under any circumstances, because whether it was a ghoul, a marid, or something even older, I believe Charles encountered something long forgotten in that forgotten city. Something that didn't kill him. Something far worse. It hollowed him out and stole his light. And somewhere beneath the endless Saudi desert, I fear it is still waiting for the next person who mistakes curiosity for courage.
Let me know what you thought of tonight's story, and subscribe to the channel, and you'll get the best original horror twice a week. Check out some of our other videos on screen now. Thanks for watching. Good night, and sweet nightmares.